Welcome to Coaching KidLit, a podcast about writing and publishing good KidLit. We dig into various aspects of writing craft through a KidLit lens and provide inspiration and clear, actionable items to help writers like you move forward on their KidLit writing journeys. I'm Sharon Skinner, author, accelerator, certified book coach, and author of speculative fiction and KidLit, including picture books, middle grade, and young adult. Hello, listeners. It's Sharon again, and we have another special guest for you this month. Sarah Scheerger is an author and mental health clinician. She provides school-based counseling services for at-promise youth and helps them figure out who they are and who they want to be. The Dude Be Nice organization caught her attention and served as inspiration for Dude Be Nice. This is her 10th book. For more information and fun activities related to her books, you can check out her website at sarahlynbooks.com, and that's SARAHLYNNBOOKS.com. Sarah, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sarah, you've got an interesting journey. You're a health clinician and you write children's books, and you've been able to combine those things together. Talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up where you are at today with your writing and your work.
Sure. I think over time, I've figured out that there's actually a lot of overlap between the different hats that I wear in my life. One of my hats is that of a mom. I'm a mom of four, and so that colors everything that I do. Another hat that I wear is I'm a school-based mental health provider. So I'm a school counselor who provides traditional counseling services with students who are needing a little extra support. And in that role, I've also done some social emotional learning activities with large groups and classroom discussions. And so that colors my work as well. And then I love children's books. And I realized that there's an organic overlap between writing for children and what we call social emotional learning. Because when you read a really good book, you connect so deeply with the character that you feel empathy for them and their experiences. It's almost as if you become the character when you're reading a good book. And so you get to see the world through their eyes. So that gives you perspective, it gives you empathy, it gives a reader a chance to try on different choices in life. Even when a character is making what we would call an unhealthy choice, you're still learning through that experience. You learn what not to do and what to do. There's just opportunities to teach all kinds of social emotional learning concepts. So it took me a while to realize that there was an overlap, but once I did, I try to bring it into my work whenever I can.
So tell us about the first book that you wrote then in this overlap scenario.
Okay, so my first couple of books, I'll just kind of go through them in order. I wrote a couple picture books, Tip Tap Pop, which is about a grandpa who is aging and learns to communicate through dancing. I wrote a counting book, 1, 2, 3, Baba Vroom. I wrote an easy reader, The Boulder Brothers Meet Mo and Joe. And then I think I began some of my YA work. And I would say my young adult novels all have to do with deeper issues, more complex issues. One of the books covers teen pregnancy, and that's Opposite of Love. Another book dives into a school in the aftermath of some fear of school violence. And the kids band together to create a crisis hotline to try to improve their school culture and reach out to people. And my third YA, How You Live on the Edge, is really about coming to grips with our bodies as women, and it has to do with breast cancer. So those all have kind of some deeper issue counseling overlay to them. But I think it really crystallized for me when I wrote Operation Frog Effect, which is a middle grade novel written in 8 points of view. And because there's 8 points of view, as the author, I really had to get into all the characters' heads. And I had such great fun, honestly, creating misunderstandings and having them to have to solve their problems between each other. And I think that that is honestly so representative of a lot of the challenges that kids have in schools day to day, is that everybody's kind of walking around seeing their world through their own eyes and their own perspective and forgetting to think about how things might impact other people. And I have been able to use that idea of perspective for humor too. In my easy reader, The Boulder Brothers Meet Mo and Joe, the humor comes from the fact that the two characters know a lot less than the young child reader knows. And so reading the book, the young child is going to know what's happening more than the characters do. So in one scene, something smells really bad, and you can see throughout the illustration that there's a skunk in the background. But poor little Mo and Joe, who are cavemen, are running around trying to put flowers in their armpits and take baths and clean their cave. And the reader themselves knows more than the character. So I've just had fun playing with perspective. And that translates also to Mitzvah Pizza and Dude Be Nice, which have strong kindness themes. And Purple Up as well is a book celebrating the contributions of military kids. And so I want people to understand and see how much these young people are donating to our community as well. So that was a long answer, but hopefully I touched on it a little bit.
Absolutely. So what motivated you to move into children's writing then? What was the spark, the moment that you decided, I just have to start writing these books?
That is a great question. I think originally when I was a kid, I really loved writing and being creative, and it was a passion of mine. But then somehow as I was growing up, I had to get practical. I didn't focus on it. It just kind of fell to the side. And when I was a young mother, I had just had my first child. I found myself with little pockets of time when my son was napping. And in theory, I should have been doing laundry or dishes or cleaning the house or exercising, a million things I could have been doing that would have been very productive. But I honestly wanted to spend the time more internally. And I found myself drawing to journaling and then writing. So I think I started with the journaling, and then I was reading books to him and loving them and finding them brilliant and thinking, man, I used to love writing and stories, and maybe I would like to spend some time on that again. So that's when I sort of more seriously began to set aside writing time in my life. And it took a while, but finally things started to pan out.
And do you have an agent who reps all of these age categories?
I do. Yeah. I'm represented by Deborah Warren at East West Literary.
That's unusual because a lot of times we have agents who, rep a specific age category, like all picture books, or even a specific niche of picture books, or they do YA. And it's really awesome to hear that there are agents out there who will rep across categories. But I want to ask you, did she rep across categories, or did you kind of help her push that envelope?
She's amazing. I think she's a wonderful networker, and she has relationships with people from all different houses. So I give her all the credit. She's connected in all the different spheres and really open to letting her talent direct where their career goes, what they want to focus on, what they want to write.
Oh, that's awesome because not all agents are built that way. So that's exciting to hear. I know that there are people out there hoping that they'll find that agent who will allow the growth and the expansion across time. So you were already writing these social emotional learning types of books. This is what you're drawn to, Operation Frog Effect, which is about the rippling out of doing good things and doing good work in the world. Looks like a really fun book. I haven't read that one yet, so that one is totally on my list. It's very important for teens to read about the what ifs. What if this happens to me? What could happen to me? It helps them not do a lot of those things. A lot of times, my youngest was a big Ellen Hopkins fan, and I firmly believe that some of why she was so successful in navigating her teen years is because she was able to see the pitfalls that are explored in books like that. And that's what it sounds like your YA books are doing as well. There's such an important place in the world for those kinds of books. So you were already writing all these SEL books. You were already contributing to that arena of literature for young readers. And it is such an important area, especially when we get down into the younger ages, because those are our really formative years. And you'd written a number of picture books. And now we get to Dude Be Nice. Dude Be Nice isn't just a picture book, though. It's a book that you decided to write because of this organization. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization and how this all came to fruition?
Absolutely. So in part of my work as a school-based counselor, I do presentations to youth and talking about different social emotional learning topics. So actually two of my books were inspired by people out there who are doing amazing things in the world and needed to be highlighted. My book Mitzvah Pizza was inspired by a real life pizza shop in Philadelphia called Rosa's Fresh Pizza, which is basically pay it forward pizza. Over time, people came in and people would want to buy a piece of pizza for somebody else. I think they were in an area where there might have been more poverty. And so if someone wanted to come in and buy a piece of pizza for somebody else, he would just take their money and then write on a Post-it note that that pizza had been paid for, stick it to the wall, and people could come in and take that Post-it off, and that's how they could pay for their pizza. So I came across that when I was prepping for a presentation for school kids, and that turned into a picture book called Mitzvah Pizza. And then the same thing happened with Dude Be Nice. I was prepping for a presentation. I was looking for something about kindness and altruism, and I came across a video that they created highlighting a custodian at an elementary school. It's actually near to my home, and it made me cry. It was so poignant and meaningful. This was a custodian who'd been there for many, many years, knew all the kids, they loved him, and they basically, in this video, set up an enormous surprise for him to honor him for all of his work and contribution. And not only did I feel excited about that for the custodian because the custodian was doing such great work, but I felt excited about that for the kids because they got to give back. A lot of times kids are the recipients of love and support, and it's actually also quite healing to be able to give back to somebody else, that altruism. So I loved that the kids could plan a whole event for someone they cared about and get the experience of that being recorded. So once I saw that video from Do Be Nice, they were kind of on my radar. And I kept seeing them pop up in all different places. They have a project they call the Do Be Nice Project, which just sets out to create more positive communities, finding the unsung heroes and setting up an elaborate surprise and coming in and surprising them in mostly schools, but in communities too. They also have a clothing line that says Dude, Be Nice. And I started thinking too about how universal the word dude is. One of my best friends from college used to say dude all the time. He'd say it as a greeting, dude. He'd say it like to show empathy, dude. He'd say it to show frustration, dude. So I just realized dude was just a great word and could be used in so many different ways. So once I started thinking about that, this character of a dude popped into my head. And I live in California, so it's kind of a Southern California skateboarder surfer vibe was what I was thinking in my head. A character named Dude who was nice. And that's all I had. And it lived in my mind for probably a couple of years. And then at some point, I reached out to the company and said, have you ever thought about writing a picture book? And they said, yeah, it's actually been on our to-do list, but we didn't know how to start because that's not their field. And so we partnered up. And it was a long journey from that point forward because Dude took on many different forms before we landed on the right one. But I'm just so honored to be able to support a company who's doing good things. I want more people to know about the company Do Be Nice. I want more people to watch those videos. I know for myself, when I watch the news, I'm overwhelmed with the heaviness of things that are happening in the world. And I don't want to just consume that content. I want to consume content that's positive. And in my day-to-day life, I see those people. I see the custodians, I see the lunch lady or the lunch man. I see the people who are pouring their hearts into our kids. And I want everyone else to see those people too.
Well, I've seen some of them now too, because I, of course, went to the website. I watched the video. I practically cried.
They all make me cry.
It's joyful to see that kind of love and joy. It's an amazing feeling when kids pour it in. And so I just love seeing those people who have, like you said, continued to support and care for and pour goodness into the kids that they work with and that they work for, and to see them get recognition of that nature. That's huge. And I know they don't do it for that. That's not why they do it. But like you said, the kids get this opportunity to show how much they appreciate someone. Boy, that is just a really great idea. And it puts really good things in the world. I want to see more good things in the world. Of course we do. That's why we do children's books. That's why we're interested in kids' literature. We want to put good things into the world. We want to give kids those experiences. So I think it's a great organization. I'm excited about it. But when you took the idea to them and you had this kind of surfer dude idea, I've seen the preview and that's not a surfer dude.
Yeah. So there was a lot of evolution with the idea. I think it popped into my head with a few components I wanted to keep. I wanted it to be called Dude Be Nice. I wanted the character's name to be Dude. I wanted there to be a theme of kindness throughout. And the rest I wasn't so sure about. And so I played with different approaches. And as I'm sure you know as well, as an author, we don't necessarily get to pick how the characters look, right? So I love the illustrator, Alex. She's done an amazing job. That was all her own creativity. So what I envisioned is different than what she envisioned. And thank goodness for that, because it turned out way better. And I feel that across the board with all of my books. It's never exactly what I imagined, but it's always better because you're combining two people's creative minds. And yes, Dude took on many forms during the writing journey. So this story really began before the pandemic. And then it kind of settled down and went quiet for a little while because the world was upside down. And so it actually took quite a long time from the moment that we began working on this together as a collaborative team to now having the book come out. And I remember thinking like, oh, maybe it's good that it's taking longer because the world is upside down and we need more time and maybe the world will settle. I feel like the world is still upside down in a different way, but it's coming out now and I'm hoping it's the right time for some positive, dude be nice energy. But it did take on some different forms along the journey. At first, I really was visualizing this story. I had Pizza Cat in my head, is what I can say. I kept thinking Pizza Cat is such a great character and we need another book like that. But honestly, Pizza Cat is so genius and so simple. It was really hard for me to try to dissect what was making it work. So I spent a long time reviewing books like that. We call them mentor texts, as I'm sure you know, but reviewing them and trying to figure out what makes that work. It's so great. It's so simple. So I spent time working and looking at books like that. And my very first version was rhyming. It had a surprise at every page turn. It was very young. And it was building to a big surprise. The character dude was planning a surprise for somebody at school, and each step was getting closer along the way. And it was sweet and simple, but it wasn't quite right. So I went back to the drawing board and I was trying to find something a little more voicey. And so again, I leaned into mentor texts. I was looking for books that were voicey, distinct, unique. And I read Dragons Love Tacos, which is an amazing book, and tried to again dissect what makes that work. Why is that so amazing? It is amazing. Why is it amazing? And I played around with a version that was kind of voicey like that and having the reader talk to dude directly. So the text would be like, dude, look up or something. And then so you'd be talking to dude. So I played with that. It was funny and silly. It was building to a big surprise again, but maybe too silly, maybe too wordy. I'm not sure. It didn't quite work either. So I went back to the drawing board again. And this time I was going for a deadpan humor, simple and, minimal reaction from dude. And that's the one that stuck.
So how many iterations do you think you went through? And these are complete overhauls. This is not just a revision or a
Yes.
rewrite or an edit. This is a major overhaul. So how many versions do you think you did?
I had 3 main, totally different submittable versions. Ones where I thought it was done, and each version I probably revised, I want to say like 30, 40 times, so many times. I revised it over and over and over again, trying to get it just right to the point where I felt it was done. And then I think it wasn't really done. So I needed to go back and kind of revisit it again. And, the revision can be a frustrating process. And yet it also can lead to the best results. And so I kept telling myself, like, it's okay if it takes me a while. It's okay if I don't get it right. I just want it to be right when it's done. And I do feel that this version that came out was the best version. So I'm grateful for all the ups and downs.
And those overhauls that you were doing, were those on your own? Did you decide, okay, this isn't quite right? Or were you working with your agent on that? Did you have beta readers? What kind of process were you going through for that?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So I basically sold the book. I had an interested editor fairly early on. So once she was interested, and the contract may not have been signed yet, I can't remember exactly when. When she was interested, I submitted what I thought was the final version. And I think she fell in love with the idea of Dude Be Nice, but the way it played out wasn't exactly what she envisioned. So she came back and said, let's see if we can have something more voicey. So I went through and my original draft could not have been voicey. It wouldn't have worked. It wasn't a voicey draft. It was a sweet, rhyming, very young draft. So I came back with a draft that was more voicey and got that to the best that I could and submitted it. And I think she liked it, but came back and said, I think what I was envisioning was a little more deadpan humor. And so that voicey tone wouldn't have worked with deadpan humor. It needed to be more simple. So revision is hard. In this case, I felt so lucky to already have an editor on board because in my experience, often when you submit, if it's not what they're looking for, they say, yeah, I was really wanting something more voicey, but that's it. The door's closed. You don't get to revise it. So I would much, much rather have a situation where I have an editor who is invested and says, I would like it this way. I'm happy to revise. I will revise it 100 times as long as I feel like there's a path forward and it's going to end in something.
Right. So revise and resubmit situation is, of course, always the best scenario, right? You definitely want to be able to do that. We don't always get that opportunity, especially in our early careers. Early career is exactly what you say. You send it off and they either like it or they don't. And they usually don't want to see it again if they didn't like exactly that version. They might be interested in something else you've written, but definitely they don't want to see that again. And not unless it has, like you said, a major overhaul. And even then, a lot of times they're not interested. Right? They didn't see enough in it.
Exactly. And I think the market is so saturated. There's so much amazing literature out there that it just kind of has to land, most of the time, it has to land on their desk pretty much close to right.
And you have to hit the right person with the right thing
Yes.
at the right time, and it's got to be right. It does make what we do quite challenging.
Yes. And I think sometimes it's just amazing that it ever works out, right? Because it's just so many pieces that have to kind of, the stars have to align for it to become a book. And I think that's what aspiring writers should know is that it's such a journey. Truly, it's such a journey. And I see it as a wonderful, enriching hobby and coping skill and a way to put my energy. But the stars have to align. Just because something doesn't sell doesn't mean it's not good or it doesn't have value in the world or it wasn't worth the time. It just means the stars didn't align on that project. It's hard to admit and to accept, but I think that's the way I try to view it so I don't get discouraged.
Yes, and perseverance pays.
Hmm.
If you keep going and keep going, the stars will align on something.
Eventually,
Yeah.
yes, I agree.
So in the three major overhauls that you did, all three of them were very different in tone and voice and somewhat even in target audience. I'd like you to kind of dig in on the differences between, especially what you were saying between the deadpan humor and the very voicey. What do you mean by that?
Well, let me show you by example. What I'd like to do is kind of give a brief intro to each of the three main finished versions that I have and read the first page of each. So in my very first version, I was thinking Pizza Cat, and I was trying to have the story plot align with the actual surprises that the Do Be Nice company has done, with the main character planning a surprise for his school. And I wanted this version to be for very young readers. The story rhymed, and each page turn revealed something new. So dude is walking to school and trying to do something nice on the way. So here's the intro, the first page. Dude can't wait to get to school. He's planning a surprise, dodging legs and spinning wheels when suddenly he spies, and then the page would turn and you see what he spies on the next page. So that you can hear that the tone of that is a little sing-songy, very sweet and simple. In my second finished version, that was a little bit more voicey, and I was reading Dragons Love Tacos and voicey books like that to try to embrace the mentor text. In this version, my narrator, the reader, talked directly to Dude, and I was trying to be snappy and voicey. And again, in this version, Dude was planning to surprise someone special, but getting it all wrong. This one has a voicey tone. Dude, what's up? Besides the sky, of course. He he he. That always cracks me up. Ooh, what you got there, dude? Is that a cake? Your famous double-decker cookie cake? So you can tell that tone is more pumped, more wordy, not simple, would need to be read with the right reader. I think that might have been one of the things that made it hard to pull off. In my final version, I was trying to channel more deadpan humor. And in this version, I wasn't having to plan a big surprise at the end. I was just having him try to be nice and basically getting it all wrong. So in this version, Dude is very egocentric. He's seeing the world only through his own eyes. He's not realizing that what he's doing to help others is actually not helpful at all. So it's very silly. So the opening of this one is meet Dude. Dude's a nice dude most of the time. He says please and thank you. He picks up trash and he's always cheerful. And of course, we know he's not going to be always cheerful and he's not going to be nice all the time. So that's kind of a taste of the different tones and openings to the book. And I like the one we wound up with best, honestly. When I was in the midst of the other ones, I love those ones too. But reading them now, I think the one we wound up with is better.
I really appreciate you sharing those three versions. We don't get to see that a lot. And especially nowadays, we used to be able to go and see the original marked up manuscripts, the typed up with all of the editorial notes on them from people. That kind of ephemera we don't have as much of anymore because we work so digitally. So I really appreciate you sharing those three different versions and giving us the flavor of it rather than just talking about it. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we are about at the point in our show where we like to give our listeners an action item. And Sarah, you have an action item for us today.
Yes, I would like to encourage people to do what I did with Dude, where you have a story in mind or a character or a plot and trying to rewrite it just for fun, no pressure, rewrite it with different tones and voices and from different angles and just see which one winds up being the best. I find that writing without pressure allows the creativity to flow a little bit better. And so if you've got an idea that you want to pursue, just spend a little bit of time playing with different ways it could be written, different ways it could play out, and then sit with it for a while and see which one calls to you the most.
No, that's a great action item. We talk a lot here on the show about trying things different ways, but we haven't really talked as much about tone and voice in that. And I love that you have given us a really great example before giving us the action item to go out and try that. My action item for our listeners is to think about social emotional learning and how you can incorporate that into your own work. What do you understand about the world and about empathy and about behaviors that maybe you have personal experience with? Because we were kids, we went through a lot of things, or maybe you have kids and you see some of those behaviors that maybe you can incorporate into a story with a character to help others either have empathy for that character or to show how that character can grow. So I highly recommend that you think about and take a look at what Sarah's done with her books. She's got a very nice array of books that contain social emotional learning and information that I think would be very valuable for you to take a look at her books. So when we're talking about mentor texts, check out Sarah's books along with the other books that you might be using as your own mentor texts.
Appreciate that. And I wanted to add that, teachers in the classroom have a lot of topics to cover. They are covering all the core curriculum and they have to do what we call social emotional learning. So if they can pick up a picture book and read it to their students and they can incorporate some learning with that, it maximizes their time.
And Sarah, in your books, is there back matter that supports the teachers in teaching those lessons?
Yes. For my more recent books, I have curriculum guides on my website that can just be downloaded. And they align with what I see are the SEL concepts in the books that I've written. And so each of them comes with like an activity or a discussion. I want to make it as easy for teachers as I can to read the book and then grab an activity that calls to them or they think speaks to their students and do that with their kids and just save them a little bit of time. And in a book like Dude, there's kindness and empathy. There's perspective taking, understanding feelings. There's the idea of listening. What does it mean to listen? What does it mean to be responsible? Coping when things get hard, asking for permission, which we call consent, growth mindset. You don't get it right the first time. Mistakes are how we grow, sharing. All those are just in one little picture book. So there's a lot there.
Now, Sarah, you're the clinician, so you know all this stuff. You live it, you breathe it. This is something you work with all the time. For those of us who are not clinicians, is there a resource that we could look to for how we identify the social emotional learning that maybe we put into our books, not even necessarily intentionally, but things that our characters are going through that we can maybe identify those SEL aspects that we can then find a way to create a curriculum, an educator's guide, and or the back matter that would go into a book? Are there any resources that you might want to recommend?
Yeah, I am just looking up the website right now. I like CASEL. CASEL stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And the website is casel.org. So it's a great resource.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. See, I knew you would know. This has been great, and I really enjoyed it. And I would also say to our listeners that if you are looking for someone who knows how to do an educator's guide or some sort of curriculum guide for a book, Sarah has one for pretty much every book that she has put out. And I think it's really valuable to look at those resources and to see how someone who knows what they're doing has done it. I also found it really exciting that you are being published by many different publishing houses. So there is an opportunity for these kinds of books out there and not just at maybe a niche publisher. So I thought that that was really an interesting aspect as well. Sarah, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off today?
Right. Yes, I would love to share an audio of some music that the Do Be Nice company has created. We have a Do Be Nice jingle because we're hoping that the idea of being nice and being nice dudes will catch on with students and classrooms and schools all over the country and the world. So I'm going to play this audio for you. It's very short.
Do the dude dance, clap twice. Do the dude dance, be nice. Do the dude dance, clap twice. Do the dude dance, be nice. He's out to be nice and nice he'll be. 1, 2, 3, just wait and see. Shake it out from head to toes. Twirl around, now stop and pose. Do the dude dance, clap twice. Do the dude dance, be nice. Do the dude dance, clap twice. Do the dude dance, be nice.
Thank you for your time today. It's been lovely talking to you, and I'm so grateful for the chance to share Do Be Nice and my other work with the world. We need more dudes out there being nice, and we need more people highlighting the unsung heroes in this world. So in closing, dude, be nice.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for being here. It has been a pleasure.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.
Bye for now.
Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Coaching KidLit, a writing and book coaching podcast for writers who want to level up their KidLit game. For more episodes, visit coachingkidlit.com. And to find out more about what a book coach can do for you, visit my website, bookcoachingbysharon.com.